Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Super Paranormal Chronicles. Today, I am delighted to have Lynda Quirino, nearly said, who's been in the paranormal field for over 44 years, and we've got some cool stories. Lynda, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm delighted, actually. This is going to be fun.
Don't call me Ashley, just Lee. Okay, so you've been in the field for 44 years. How did this all start?
My goodness, I don't know if you've got a 5-hour show or not, but I'll make it short. Do you know really how it all started was through a paranormal experience that I had when I was very, very young, and it intrigued me to find out a little bit more about all of this ghostly stuff. And that's really in a nutshell how it all started.
Okay, so you mentioned this paranormal experience. You can't just keep us on tender hooks and not tell us. So what happened?
All right. Okay. Well, I was very young. I grew up in Montreal, and my parents had summer cottage in the Laurentians in a little place called Newaygo, which I don't even know if it exists anymore, but it was near a place called Morin Heights, where there's a lot of great skiing, a beautiful lake. But when I was very, very young, they used to put me to sleep in the ground floor bedroom of the cottage that we had. And I used to see all kinds of different images sort of coming in and out, making faces at me, trying to get me to laugh, is what I interpreted it as. But I was really young. I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old. So to me, it was funny and it was strange, but I didn't think anything of it because, when you're little, what you see is what you get, right? And so I mentioned it to my parents at the time and said, yeah, there's all these funny people that are making faces at me. They're talking to me. They're smiling at me, and they have weird hats on. So my mom said, well, what kind of a hat? And I said, well, it's kind of a funny hat and it has a dent in the middle. So she didn't say anything. And a little while later, we were watching cartoons. And back then, we watched a cartoon called Dudley Do Right, the Canadian Mountie. And anybody in Canada would know what that cartoon was. And I pointed at the television and I said, that's the hat that they're wearing when they come in and out and they say hello to me in the bedroom. And my parents kind of looked at me and said, well, that's very interesting because your grandfather built the cottage over an old Mountie station. So that really intrigued me. And of course, as a child, in kindergarten or whatever, people would ask you questions about, what do you do and what are you interested in? And when I would talk about this experience, people in the playground would say, well, there's no such thing as ghosts. I mean, what, you think they're ghosts? And I'd say, well, yeah, I really do. And they'd say, well, there's no such thing. And then, of course, when nobody was looking, they'd kind of take me to the side and say, well, I had an experience too. So you're really not crazy. Let me tell you about mine. So that's really how it all started, very innocently as a child.
Yeah, I love it how some people try and tell you that the paranormal doesn't exist. I had a friend last year when I told him I was a paranormal investigator. He laughed, and I went, "So you've got evidence to prove this, then, have you?" So, what do you mean? Well, if you think it's like garbage, you must have some evidence to prove that fact, and you could make a lot of money from that. Oh, well, no, it's just my personal opinion. So it's like, well, let me tell you something.
Right.
Okay. So these kind of things happened in your early life. So when you became a teenager and started realizing what the world was all about, how did that paranormal route take you then?
Well, I've always been a bit of a voracious reader. So I really wanted to learn more about the paranormal field. And at the time, there were some great books out and some interesting television programs at the time, not kind of like what we have. We didn't have all the equipment and we didn't have, ghost hunters and all of that. But I used to read a lot about the paranormal. and order books from Scholastic about the paranormal. And what was great was that I put two and two together and realized that I really wasn't the only one having any of these experiences, which was really, really paramount to me. This was a big deal for me because I really wanted other people to share their experiences with me and to know that they weren't alone. So really it kind of catapulted me into being the ghost lady, at school. So when people were having strange experiences, they would sort of say, well, I know this person who might know a little bit about that kind of stuff. So you might want to talk to her about it. So that's really how it all began. And when I was at the ripe old age of 18, I decided that I was really interested in this. I had read a few books and I was really, really curious about, oh my gosh, Sheila Hervey, who wrote a book, Great Canadian Ghosts, Some Canadian Ghosts, More Canadian Ghosts, and a couple of other people. So I decided that I wanted to be an investigator. I wanted to talk to people who've had these experiences. I wanted to try and take a picture of a ghost. That would be really cool. But I really wanted to help people out and to understand why it was happening. So I started my own little investigation, well, I guess business, just me. And I realized quite quickly that that really wasn't the way to go. You should always go and do an investigation with somebody else, at least one other person. You shouldn't go alone. And I stick to this I stick to that this day because boy, I had some really awful experiences just going by myself.
Yeah, and I know that when you read all the books or you watch all the TV shows, one of the first things they say is Lynda. They actually mention your name, Lynda. Don't go by yourself.
Right.
So, yeah, rule number one in the big black book. My big black book's here. I don't know if you can see it. It goes on the side. I've never looked in it. Just like, oh, that's a cool book. It says, "Don't go by yourself." So, what happened for you to realize that Lynda should not be going by herself?
Well, really my very first big investigation by myself was a real eye opener because I had gone to see this wonderful elderly woman in Hudson, Quebec. Beautiful location, gorgeous homes, really old, wonderful homes. And this is what this woman lived in, this beautiful old home. And she had been having some issues with things moving, things being thrown. And she was perturbed by this and wanted to know what was going on. So I went over with my little trusty notebook and my camera with the flash cubes and my tape recorder. You remember those, the lovely tape recorders? Now you wouldn't remember.
No, 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 I'm not old enough. No.
No, that's true. You wouldn't remember. But anyway, my cassette recorder, and I interviewed the lovely lady in her home. And what happened was, being a little bit of a skeptic, I talked to this lady. She was telling me about the things that were happening. And as I was speaking with her, behind her was this beautiful fireplace and beautiful marble mantle, on top of which was this very heavy crystal ashtray. And in my head, as I'm interviewing her, I'm saying, no, I don't know. I don't know if I buy the fact that things are moving and things are being thrown. Is she lying to me? Is she being truthful? I really don't know. I'm not feeling it. Well, just as I was thinking this, and as I was jotting little notes down in my notebook, this huge crystal ashtray levitated and took off towards me, missing me by mere centimeters, and bashed the wall in back of me, made a nice big dent in the wall, and landed to the floor, which was a little, I think, frightening at the time.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and that's when I thought, all right, maybe I shouldn't be here by myself. It would be really nice if somebody else could see this, not just this lady, but somebody else could see this and witness what was going on. So I realized that, you know, there is something called corroboration out there. It's not just I'm having this experience and this is an amazing experience. It's okay, I'm having this experience, but did you see what I saw? So after that, I always made it a point to go with at least one other person. So
Yeah, and I can totally agree with what you're saying, because if three people see the same thing, it's not, you were tired, it's not that you were fatigued or whatever. If three people saw it, that's three independent witnesses.
exactly.
So, comparing that to having one person to say, "Oh, this ashtray levitated," and guess what? Yeah, so that makes perfect sense to have three people. So, with you doing this at a relatively young age, and some of the people that you were dealing with, like this little old lady, was there not any kind of like, this kid doesn't know what they're talking about kind of thing?
What was really interesting is that I found, being very young, that people, even though I was young, were quite fascinated that I knew a little bit about it, that I really wasn't afraid of it, and that I was willing to listen to them. And I think that was really important because even though I was young, they were willing to share their experiences with me. And they realized that, here's a kid who's, quite well spoken. She's read quite a few things. I was very familiar with things like, the Warrens, even back then. Lloyd Orbach really was a big influencer. I read a lot on Harry Price, all of the greats. And I seemed to know what I was talking about. And in my head, I was interested. And I think they were willing to talk to me about all of this stuff. They didn't really poo poo me, and shove me aside and say, "Wow, this one's a weirdo," which I'm so grateful for to this very day.
I was not going to call you a weirdo, I promise.
Oh, thank
But
goodness.
but it's funny that you mention about doing a lot of reading, because when I first started getting involved with this over in Canada, I decided that I wanted to do as many courses as possible. So I joined or signed on with a company that live out of Halifax, and I was doing poltergeist courses and ghosts and hauntings, just to get as much information as I can, because I'm not a big reader.
Right.
Like, this big book here, I flicked through it when I bought it, and it's been there ever since. Yeah, I'm not one for just sat there to like read page after page after page.
Right.
Even when I go on vacation, I like to be doing active things.
Right.
So for me to get all this information and doing online courses, I feel that my knowledge base is a lot stronger now. Because the books that people read, when you and I were a kid and everything was in black and white, yeah, did not have the same kind of mentality or professionalism or structure as what they have now, because loads more people have experienced it, so there's a lot more evidence out there that people can refer to.
True. That's really true. Yeah. But I loved reading anything I could get my hands on. And even to this day, people will say, "What should I do if I'm really interested in the paranormal? What should I do? What should I be doing?" And I always tell them, educate yourself, read anything you can, the good, the bad, and the ugly, watch anything that you can too. Any of the shows on TV, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they'll teach you what not to do as well as what to do. And I really stand by that. I think it's important that you're sort of well-rounded. You're that person who kind of knows a little bit about this and that and can then choose a path that works for them. Right.
Yeah, and I've told people exactly the same so many times. Like, there's so many different TV shows out there, and even on YouTube nowadays, there's so many different groups getting YouTube channels and stuff like that. But you have to take some of it with a pinch of salt. Oh, that door moved, but they don't show you what's behind the door. Oh, this toy rolled from off screen. Okay, did somebody throw it? So you've got to take them with a pinch of salt. And with all the investigations that we do, we make sure that everything is black and white, so to speak,
Right.
and we can prove and confirm everything. And if we have something that we're not sure about, then we will try and replicate it to see if we can debunk it. And if we can't debunk it, then it goes on the unexplained pile.
Perfect. We do the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, talking of we, the royal we, what happened next?
Oh my goodness. Well, what I did initially was just kind of tackle all of these little cases that came my way. And back then, of course, everything was word of mouth. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, nothing like that. So everything came to me through other people, which even to this day is a really good thing because so many people don't like to share their experiences with other people for fear of ridicule or, other things. But so that happened until I got married and moved to Ontario from Quebec. And of course, I'm thankful because my husband is a real skeptic, but puts up with all of this. I mean, when he met me, he knew that I was a paranormal investigator and all of this. And honestly, when I moved to the Toronto area, I immediately started to continue doing what I was doing, investigating by word of mouth, connecting with people. But then, of course, the internet came. And in 1997, I managed to hook up with the Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research Society. I lived by then north of Toronto, and they needed someone to handle cases and questions north of Toronto. But they also needed an assistant director. So when the director at the time, who's Matthew Didier, realized that, okay, I guess she knows a little bit about what she's talking about, he then asked if I would like to become the assistant director, which was a fabulous experience. We got to go to really great places and host some very interesting gatherings at which a very important person in publishing would guest speak, and this was John Robert Colombo. So I was able to sit with John Robert Colombo, who has written a whole bunch of books about haunted Canada, haunted Toronto, haunted Ontario, and we could share all kinds of information. And that's, I think, the key to understanding a little bit about the paranormal, because, there are those common denominators of experience that I find so incredibly fascinating. So it kind of, organically grew from, 18 years of age to blah, 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 where I am now. So,
Yeah. One thing that I want to jump back to for a quick second. I can just imagine in my head you meeting your husband's parents for the first time. Oh, so Lynda, what do you do for hobbies? And like your husband's going, no, please don't tell them. Please don't tell them.
1,000%, 1,000%. But,
Yeah. So I like what you say about having different levels of experience because there's no such thing in this environment as an expert because it's all a pseudoscience. If we could put a ghost into a laboratory and do some tests, and they could prove its existence, all good and well, and then all us investigators would have to find something else to do, like knitting or cross stitch, because because our objective would have been okay, it's been sorted now. We need to go and do something else.
true.
But there's different levels of experience. You can come into this environment and you think that the person you're talking to in your eyes is an expert, but they're not. They've just got plenty of experience in doing what they've been doing.
Yes, that's so
uh,
true.
yeah. And I think say it comes from different angles, because if you google the word paranormal, a lot of people just think it's ghosts and spirits, but it's not. You've got cryptids, you've got UFOs, you've got magic, you've got fairies, and there's loads of other subcategories. So it's not just I'm an expert in ghosts and spirits. You know, you're experienced in the paranormal,
Right.
and that's important. So, being this assistant director, what kind of locations did that get you into?
Um, well, we did some residential investigations in Toronto and beyond, which I really love. I love residentials. But we also did manage to get into places like one of the famous lighthouses here in Toronto. We did walk around the University of Toronto, which is very haunted, as well as we left the Toronto area and did go to, well, Fort York, though, in Toronto was another one that we investigated. But we did go beyond, and we went to Fort George, Fort Erie, things like that, sort of outside, more sort of famous locations that were purported to be haunted, but we were very curious to try and get some evidence of some kind. And we did get some evidence, but at the time, of course, we didn't have things like spirit boxes and all of that. We still were operating with our tape recorders and our cameras, but we were learning going along the way, right? So we were learning a little bit about what this business of the paranormal was, and how things reacted with light, and how things reacted with sound and frequencies. And so it was a learning experience for us, which I think was so important, because now with all of this incredible equipment, the progression, it's so interesting to see the progression of, where we were to where we are now. So that was so important. I mean, that's what makes, I think, an investigator like me, who's been in this field for so long, even more interested in learning more. There's always more to learn. I mean, you can't ever be an expert, right?
Exactly. And I do think it's important to note that it's all good and well spending thousands and thousands of dollars on all these flashy, noisy gadgets that can be affected by cell phones or by radios. And people think that they're getting positive hits.
Exactly.
And yeah, and even if you've got a basic video camera, learn how to use it. Like, remember that you have an extra button to switch your microphone on. Been there, done it. Oh, and I'm recording something. Oh, and the lens cap's still on. Learn how to use your the basics before you go into the flashy, because the flashy, more often than not, can give false positives.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Yeah. So, quick question: do you have any flashy gadgets now, or do you still have your notebook, your ice cube camera, and your video? No.
Well, we do have some flashy things because we do some public investigations, and people love the flashy. I mean, they really do. We also have the flashy because when we do an investigation, for example, if we do a residential investigation and people are doubtful as to whether they're experiencing things, they like to see what's going on. They like to have some kind of validation. So really the flashy is for the validation, that kind of thing. But I mean, when you've been doing this for so long, you do develop almost a sixth sense, I guess. When you go into a location that is active, you can feel, you can sense the change in energy, the change in vibration. You really can.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because I was at an investigation last Saturday night, and before I turned up, some of the other guys had a walk around the building, and they went, "Oh, Lee, go up to this one room, because when we went in there, we felt a heavy sensation." So I'm okay. Yeah, go up the stairs, walked in, walked around, came out. Did you feel anything? No. But yeah, that does not mean that whatever was there when they were there was still there when I was. It could have moved on, because yeah. If spirits and ghosts do exist, they're not just going to sit and go, right, okay, guys, 7 p.m. on Saturday, we've got a team coming. So Joe, I want you to make sure that you're ready. Dave, I want you to go and bang that table. That's it, yeah, and that's not quite how it works. But it'd be so cool if it did. Sort of like, yeah, can we book you for 7 o'clock? We've got this public investigation. But we are so cautious about using the shiny, flashy gadgets because, like I say, you can get so many false positives, and you've got to concentrate on your basics before you even think about buying anything else. Because as soon as you buy something and it's got the word ghost or spirit in front of it, whoever's selling you it's going to put more dollars in front of it. And it's
That's
like,
so
what?
true. Oh my gosh, that's so true. It's funny because I like to tell people the great example of the ghost box or the spirit box, because way back when, and we're talking, oh my gosh, 1981, I remember taking an old transistor radio and kind of thinking to myself at the time, well, if ghosts can communicate through different frequencies and a radio is a different frequency thing, then why can't I use this transistor radio? And I was very successful in the early 1980s doing investigations with my little transistor radio, and it was tuned between stations, and I would get voices coming through. And when, of course, the spirit box was all the big rage and everybody wanted one and everybody was using one, I thought back to, boy, that was a stroke of genius on my part to take this little transistor radio with me. And people thought I was crazy at the time, but that's essentially what a spirit box is.
So you could have made yourself a fortune.
What the heck, right?
I know, right?
Jeez.
And one thing that I find really funny, but I do love, that people that deal with spirit boxes is when they get a word, a lot of people, and you see it on TV all the time, they will fit that word into the investigation rather than, if that word does not fit that investigation, you can kind of put it to one side. And the expression that I always use is, if you ask what day it is and it comes out with a Wednesday, it's relevant to the investigation. If you ask what day it is and it comes out with beefcake,
Right.
don't try and put beefcake into the what day of the week it is. Oh, on Wednesdays I have beefcake for dinner. No, that's not how it works.
No.
Okay, so the next big thing in your life was the Georgina Paranormal Society. How did that come about?
Well, it's very interesting that after having done what I did with the Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research Society, I felt that I needed a little bit of a break because I had small children at the time. And I thought, well, I'll just take a break and continue to freelance. If people need me, I'll just drag people along with me as my ears and my eyes. But then the local library asked if I would do a presentation on ghosts and hauntings because they had heard that I was the local ghost lady. And I thought, okay, sure. So in my mind, I thought, well, maybe 10 people might come. Well, there were well more than 100. And I thought that was
Wow.
brilliant. I was so thrilled that so many people locally were interested in the subject. So at the talk, I asked if I were to perhaps start a local team, would anybody be interested in joining? And so many people came forward. And at the end of it all, there were 7 people that started the society with me. And I have 5 now on my team. So people have come and gone over the years. And we've been 13 years now because I started it in 2012. But, that's kind of sort of how that all came about. But I was thrilled that so many people were interested in the subject. And when I started the Paranormal Society, one of my big things was that I really wanted to be out in the community. I wanted it to be a community group, and I wanted to have public meetings. and have people come who are interested in the subject matter, have people come who are local, maybe have a guest speaker, maybe a local psychic medium or something, to talk about, their take on the paranormal. And it just kind of escalated from there. I mean, we had maybe 20 people at our first meeting, and now we have, well, oh gosh, last time it was probably about 200 people that came to our
Wow.
meeting. Well, it's great because we found a place to have the meetings for free. We have them at our local, one of our local funeral parlors.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute.
Yes.
That's cheating because you can't have a meeting at a funeral home where potentially there's going to be an overload of spirits. I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all.
That's funny. Well, interestingly enough, when we were looking for a place to hold the meetings, because we don't obviously charge for what we do, we don't have any cash on hand to pay for the rental of a location. I used to be a church secretary, so I knew the local funeral home people. And one of the local funeral, I know you're loving this. I know I can see it on your face.
I'm just writing notes.
I just love it. So one of the funeral directors offered the use of his space. He had a beautiful reception room which held about, 75 people on a good day. So he said, "Listen, it's not being used a lot. It's only being used for funerals. If you want to come and, do your meetings here, I won't charge you for that. It's great, no worries." So we started off at the funeral home in a local town close by named Sutton. And so we started off there, and it got so crowdedly that we had to move to another funeral home that seats
I was
300.
about to say, did you move to a bigger funeral home?
Did. We moved to another funeral home, and I know the funeral director there as well, and she offered the location there, and it sits more than 300 people. And last time we were almost full house. I mean, it was ridiculous how many people are interested in this. I mean, ridiculous, yes, but great ridiculous, because it's so good to see that people are open to discussing the paranormal, and so many people have had experiences, and it's a safe place to share experiences and to kind of put people together who've had them. And when you're a paranormal investigator such as us, it's also a really good venue to meet people who are interested in talking to you. And if it's a haunted location that they believe that they are living in or working in, it gets you that in so that you can investigate, you can educate, you can do all of those wonderful things.
Yeah. I I just had the vision of the scene in the Patrick Swayze movie Ghost, where when everyone was told to get out, people just stood up and then walked through the walls. I don't know why I'd got that in my head, but it's just like, yeah, there's 300 people. Okay, but how many of them are living?
I love it.
So that's one of the best things I've heard today so far. That's fabulous. I'm going to have to go down to the local churchyard and see if we can borrow their hall.
Right?
But it's right about the enthusiasm though, because of all the shows that have been on TV, it's becoming more into the everyday life now. People are not so afraid to talk about their experiences, especially if they know that someone's not going to ridicule them. I have a work colleague who has wrote a couple of books, and he was writing one on demonology. And as soon as he found out I was a paranormal investigator, he wanted me to come and visit his house because he was experiencing noises in his basement. But it only kind of happened when he was writing his book on demonology.
Fascinating.
So, yeah, so we had to go and investigate, and we have to go back this year, hopefully. But yeah, being busy and such like. But
Wow.
yeah, it's really, yeah. And it's the fact that when we're actually doing Ottawa Comic Con uh, in, in September, And the amount of people that come up to us and just love to talk about it. And oh, I had this experience when I was 20, and I had this experience, and it's amazing how people are, excuse the pun, but coming out the woodwork
It's true.
to talk to you about it, and that makes our our environment like much more closer, and people can openly talk about it, and you hear some really really cool stories.
Yeah, and people show you some incredible videos and
Yeah,
really incredible photographs, but they're also really interested to learn more about how to deal with it as well, which I find fantastic. And there's so many people out there that love to share their experiences, and they know that when they come to our meetings, that nobody there is going to say, "Oh, wow, that's a weirdo," or "That person's lost it." They know
yeah.
that nobody's going to do that. However, having said that, I can say that some people who do go to these meetings believe themselves to be, I think, a little more knowledgeable perhaps than they truly are, and also believe themselves to have captured things that they really haven't. And they don't like it when someone from my team or me says something like, well, actually, that's not really an orb. That is moisture on your
Don't don't
camera.
don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Right? Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and that's it. But a lot of this is ignorance as well,
Yeah.
because people don't know the difference. And for us to go up and to educate them in a nice way,
Yes.
then they kind of realize. But there are some orbs that you cannot explain.
Oh gosh.
We had one a few weeks ago that we've had 3 or 4 different people look at it, and nobody can explain what it is. They give us suggestions, and we've gone, no, we check for that, we check for this, we check for this, and we can't explain it. So there are still parts of the unknown out there. So not every orb is a ghost, but some orbs we just can't explain,
True.
which that makes it more interesting.
Yes.
So moving along, you've been on TV as well.
I have been on TV. 3 seasons of Paranormal Survivor, where not only did I meet some really interesting people, but where they called us all paranormal experts. Which all of us, it was so funny when between tapings we would sit and talk. And I mean, I met some wonderful people. Michelle DeRoche is wonderful, Katie Turner, but we would all look at each other and say, oh God, yeah, paranormal expert. Oh, I don't like that. But I did love the experience because doing Paranormal Survivor, we were asked to read different cases, and they were all over the world, really, mostly of course North America, but they were fascinating. They dealt with all kinds of different topics, but they were actual cases from other paranormal groups, and we were asked to comment on them throughout the episodes, which was a great thing. I got to meet some great people and I got to learn a lot. Again, we're talking about those common denominators, right? Of experience. It was a great experience for me. And just the I don't know, just the idea of knowing that somewhere in BC, there's someone who's having almost the exact same experience as a person in Halifax, Nova Scotia, or Ottawa, or Montreal is great because there are experiences that, as you know, are so similar. I mean, it's just you could write a textbook.
For sure, for sure. Did you actually go on any investigations with Paranormal Survivor, or was it just kind of like a review board?
It was like a review board. We each were given different, I guess, cases to comment on. But how I got involved initially was season 1. The producers were reaching out to paranormal groups throughout North America. So I got an email, just a blanket email to say, listen, we're looking for cases for this TV show. And in this show, we want to share different cases, different experiences people have had. So if you have any, it would be great if you could possibly send them along. So there were a few. I sent along some cases, spoke to the people involved. Some of them didn't want to be involved and said no, but there were a few that did want to be involved. So that's how it all started. I sent some cases over and they took them on. The reenactments were crazy. I don't know. Television, it's all for good TV, Lee, as you know.
Yeah, for sure.
However, they
So,
were they were actual cases, and that was fabulous.
and that's the weird thing. If you have to reenact something that somebody's experienced, if somebody's watching that for the first time, they're going to go, "There's no way is that real." Like, your ashtray flying past your head.
Right,
Yeah. Well, if you reenact that, people are going to go, "That's fake," but you were there when it happened.
right.
So, yeah, I know that unfortunately there are fakery out there, which is really sad in this day and age, and people do try and do it to make money. But when you've got that genuine case or that genuine story, and you get a wow factor, it's like it makes things like you're just speechless at the time, and it's like that is so cool.
Yes, true.
And you must have had numerous times on Paranormal Survivor when you thought,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I remember reading the cases when they came to me and thinking, again, oh my gosh, imagine if I'd been that person, what would I have done? And then again, saying, well, as an investigator, and well, you know yourself, when people tell you about the experiences that they've had, and there's 5 or 6 of them in the room that have had the same experience, and they're telling you this firsthand, yeah, the wow factor is pretty
yeah,
incredible. Yeah, yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing.
and that's it. It's like I said earlier about multiple people experiencing the same thing.
Yes,
They may not have experienced it at the same time, but if they're in one particular room of a location and they've experienced something, and they all come out and say, "Well, I experienced something similar,"
right.
there's got to be something there, right? It's not massive delusional, whatever. Something is happening that we cannot explain.
Absolutely. And the
Yeah,
fear. I mean, when people tell you about what's happening, I worked a case a while ago, and this entire family, they were sleeping on mattresses in their living room because they did not want to sleep in their bedrooms. Things were being thrown at them. They felt pushed. They just felt that there was something there that didn't want them to be there. And it was the most incredible experience because the fear that they were feeling. I mean, when you see an entire family sleeping in their living room, they don't go to the bathroom by themselves, they don't go to the kitchen by themselves. It's debilitating. That's when you know, okay, something's happening here. And it's a big responsibility as an investigator to find out what's going on. But as an investigator too, you have this thirst for knowledge. You want to know and you want to help these people.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So through all the things that you've been on podcast, radio, local TV, done lectures. Would you say that your favourite is Ghosts and Spirits, or do you like other parts of the paranormal genre as well?
Well, I really like other parts as well. I mean, we are having here in my part of the world in Georgina some fascinating things happening. A lot of people within the past 8 to 10 years have been reporting what they believe to be skinwalkers that they've seen, and the way that they're describing them, it's kind of like the rake. I don't know if you've Googled the rake. So it's that sort of this man type figure that's completely naked, walking around on all fours, larger head, larger eyes, hairless, completely hairless. And it sort of, oh, I don't know, it leaps, it walks on all fours. People have been saying that they've been seeing this particular thing, and they're calling it a skinwalker because it looks like it's all skin. But here in this area, we also have reports of actual skinwalkers, or people talking about skinwalkers, because here we have a large indigenous population. So they talk about skinwalkers and how they can transform, from one thing to another, a wolf, into a man, into another kind of creature, how they show up when something is about to happen to a family or to a community. So it's fascinating to me to be able to kind of branch out into this cryptid area. We also have a local lake monster. We have somebody called Igo Pogo in Lake Simcoe, and many people have seen it. Many people have experienced it. And even us as a paranormal group, we had gone to a location and we're taking pictures of the lake. And inadvertently, one of our members took a picture of what the local lake monster organization believes to be our lake monster. So that's kind of interesting to me. I love the fact that this field has so much going on. I mean, it's not just ghosts and hauntings, it's cryptids, it's UFOs, extraterrestrials, all of this. And there seems to be sort of an interconnectedness to it all, which I find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more because, yeah, anything to do with the paranormal, let's break the word paranormal down. Sort of like, not normal. Anything that's not of the normal sort of like everyday life. But let's go back to your skinwalkers for a second. Have you actually done any, I hate to say that, any digging into potential culprits or potential creatures? Have you actually looked into it to see what it could be? Because if you mention a creature that's hairless, and on all fours, potentially it could be an animal that's got, is it mange or mage or whatever you want to, where all the all the hair falls off. So to investigate it and to say that it's a skinwalker, yeah, have you done any investigation to kind of clear things up for yourself?
Well, yes, when we have any kind of sighting of a skinwalker, we always contact the town, try and find out whether or not anyone's reported, for example, a bear sighting in the area, or a coyote, perhaps with mange, anything like that. So we will contact the local wildlife people to find out if there's anything that people have seen, if there's an animal in trouble. We do have a panther, apparently a local panther that people have seen throughout the years. And we keep thinking, well, maybe this could have been a panther sighting. We don't know. So we're not quick to kind of immediately say, okay, yeah, it's a skinwalker, it's something paranormal. To do so would be, a horrible thing in the field. But, as you know, most people in the field these days, they tend to love the sensationalistic aspect of it all, and they'll go to that. We don't go to that.
Yeah,
We think
yeah,
it's interesting, and we think it's fun to maybe go there for 5 minutes and think, wow, that could be paranormal. But we all know that, you can't skip to that. You can't. You have to at least cover your bases. And in this area where there's a lot of wooded regions, a lot of places where animals could be hiding out because they're sick or they're injured, you can't just go right there. You've got to do your research and kind of ask questions.
that's it. And before science became paramount, people didn't know what albinoism was.
No.
So to see an animal that's albino, you might think that that's a cryptid, that's a creature. But in this day and age, we know that this kind of thing exists. So you've got to be extremely careful with pointing that proverbial finger to say, okay, I've ticked that box. I've seen a skinwalker. I can move on next. What's next? Oh, UFOs. Okay. Oh, yeah, something in the sky there. Yeah, you've got to be very careful about depictions, and until we get categorically evidence, if one gets caught or killed or whatever, they're going to do DNA on it, and if they go, we don't know what this is, then that's going to kind of open up that proverbial can of worms.
That's exactly true. I mean, I remember, oh, gosh, years and years ago, telling somebody, okay, we're never going to know anything about all of this. And until a dead guy, taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, I'm a dead guy. Let me tell you about the nature of reality. I mean, we're never going to know. It's our best guess, but it's a fascinating guess, I really think.
Yeah. I know when I was a paramedic, I did get a guy come up to me and says, I'm a dead man walking. But then he kind of started to abuse us and we got him arrested. But I don't think he was dead, I'm pretty sure. But the police took him away.
Oh, no.
So, okay, Lynda, we are coming towards the end, unfortunately. Talk to you all day. What's next on the agenda for Lynda?
Well, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get something put together. I have so many experiences written down. I'd love to put them all in some sort of compendium out there, so that people can read them. And again, because my big thing has always been to join people together and learn about this collectively, share experiences. I'd love to get those experiences out there in some way, in some written word. So I think that's my next thing. I think that might be my next thing.
This sounds like it could be a bit of a big project.
I think so. A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Any more TV appearances coming up in the near future?
Well, not really paranormally related. I do a local lifestyle show on our local TV station. That's weekly. I've been doing that for 8 years. I love doing that, but not paranormally unless somebody reaches out. But that's always a lot
Right.
of fun too.
Yeah. I was going to say Crime Watch doesn't count.
Crime Watch, no.
Lynda, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh,
We've had some absolute blast stories. Like, I'm going to be talking about these all day now, especially the skinwalker ones. I'm going to have to come down and see if I can find myself a skinwalker. Over here in Ottawa, we have stories about Wendigos, but out in the sticks, not walking down the 417, because that would be a little bit weird. But again, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can do this again. Thanks very much.
thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.